Raising children. Oh, yeah. There was a time that they told me that there was no manuals to raise a child. Well, in this day and age and time, that's no longer the truth. There are many books written to raise a child. But I tell you, reading is one thing, applying the information is another, because you are still dealing with a personality that is developing and has absorbed some stuff that may not have come from the parent, or it may have. Sometimes examples are teachers, or the things that a parent is doing, even though we may tell a child not to do, becomes lessons for a child to do. I've had an abundance of experiences with raising children. But I want to tell you the difficulties of doing so. It is exactly that, difficult. I want my children to have the best of the best. And I tell you, sometimes the best of the best is not the best in their eyes. I have a statement or a concept that I'll tell my children under the impact of being hurt, angry, and frustrated with something that they're choosing to do or something that they're not doing from my parental guidance. And I'll tell them, hey, you upset with me being your parent? Maybe you should talk to God. He's the one who allows you to be ordered to in my life as your parent. It's an assignment. I know we all carry different belief systems, but that's just mine. But I'm telling you, throughout the years, raising children have truly been a hurtful, challenging thing. It doesn't exclude the love that I have for my children. And maybe it doesn't exclude the love you have for yours. We do want the best for our little ones. We want them to be as good as they can be. I'm a believer that I want my children to not have to relive the horrors and the painful challenges of living life as I have. Yeah, I know it can exclude them from gaining experiences to really improve on the path of life they're choosing. But I tell you, it is difficult. And what do you do? I raise children in hopes that when they're being directed to follow information or instructions, and there's the talk back. There's the, wow, I don't have to do it. Well, why do I have to do it? I tell you, when I was growing up, a child was to be seen, not heard. And I get it, times has changed. And a child needs to be heard. And as I've continued to grow and develop to be a better man, I had to give them permission to do so. But I tell you, it really is challenging to recognize the powerlessness over another human being, rather they're labeled or titled child, because my brain and my emotion tells me I have the authority over your life. It is hard to separate that. All I can do is give you the guidance, the nurturing, and the support. Because I carry this concept as also, it's not even just a concept, it's a belief. No child is going to dictate, govern me. But when I hold that, it tends to create harm to myself because I don't surrender. I don't get out of the way. I just tell you that it can be difficult when you send your child to school and you want them to be obedient, you want them to be respectful, you want them, I do, I want them to have fun and be educated and, doing what it is that they're supposed to, because they're a representation of me. And I tell you, when that doesn't happen, it causes a whole lot of turmoil in my emotions and my thinking, getting phone calls about in-school suspensions as well as out-of-school suspensions, verbal disrespect. Well, how about this one? Even attempting to tell teachers or staff that they're going to hurt themselves. I've experienced where one of my children became so smart with identifying that the school staff would give them incentives to perform well, and who wouldn't want an extra recess? Who wouldn't want extra snacks? Who wouldn't want time out not to have to do certain assignments? Well, this kid became smart enough to see that it was power, because now the school staff or the system, which means well, was actually allowing him to think that they're going to pay him to behave. And when they didn't pay him, I got the phone calls, and I also had to make the visits to the schools. And it became very, very overwhelming because it impacted my work area or my job. It impacted my own emotions. It impacted my ability to try to parent without losing me and also losing my child. And I tell you, it did not stop. Years and years of this, using different services throughout all the resources that are supposed to be available for parents who have difficult children. And I went from counseling, therapy, activities from football, baseball, basketball, spending quality time, limiting the electronic use because didn't want that individual to lose themselves. Prayer for me, involving them, educating them on a higher power, trying to get spiritual growth from them as well as improving their choices. And it just continues to be a challenge. Now, in my presence, this child that I'm talking about particularly is well mannered, or I would say a typical kid when I'm around. If I'm in the vicinity, that child is a typical child, which is cool. But when I'm not, and any adult that is attempting to be an adult in that child's life, it only takes a word or a decision from the adult that is not in agreement with this child, and all hell is going to break loose. As this child continues to get older, this child has the ability to put themselves into almost an adult category of being held accountable for their choices and actions. Yeah, I've continued over the years going to different resources, calling for support, even looking at certain placements, not to punish, but to give that individual child of mine an opportunity to not go down the road that is almost difficult to get out. Or maybe this child might have to be similar to me. For years, there are many adults in my childhood life giving me insight and information that I disregarded, and only to find out reaching certain ages like 25, 27, and 30, this information started to resurface. And of course, I was sitting in the consequences of my actions, and they weren't good. And it came a point in time of, we call it the wake up time, wanting something different. But all those years I spent with journeying or traveling down a road that was supposed to be fun, and it's what I want. Every human being desires to be nurtured. It's just, how are we being nurtured? How do we nurture ourselves, even with children? My point is this: doors closed on me for all the help I asked for, and when the doors was open, they were not suffice. They were not beneficial no more than the time that they were actually happening. And I'll say again, being a parent that I am, I don't have a problem with incorporating information that will better our lives. You know, when I say about my childhood, a child is to be heard, not seen, I did not consistently or entirely practice all my childhood parenting that I received on my children. Learning can be difficult, especially when you're a self-teacher and you see a lot of different things, you hear a lot of different things. But how do you find the right solution for your child to be successful in this world that we live in today? Great question, with many question marks behind it. But again, I have fallen low in tolerance. I have gotten overly frustrated. Many times the heart has been severed with pain from choices of my children. But there's this thing that I was introduced to called unconditional love. And unconditional love means that you love no matter what. But I say that's easier said than done when faced or dealing with situations that are truly challenging, to say the least about loving someone, especially a child. But if you give up, then you're a bad parent. But if you don't give up, you may be a crazy parent. You may be a broken parent. I don't know who has the right answer for dealing with difficult children. But I do know this. You can't give up. Not in the manner of losing you. Because if you lose you, the child is going to do what it does anyway. So I'm not trying to slander resources that are in existence for parents who have difficult children. I'm just saying, when you change your style of parenting and you increase, as I have, with spiritual principles, not being afraid of healthy information, time out versus a slap in the face, conversations, communicating, explaining, teaching coping skills, listening to the child, identifying what is it the child seeks. Sometimes, even for me, my child has developed different disorders, if you will. We've had several assessments. I'm a believer in a second opinion on mental health as well as behaviors that could be categorized towards mental health. It's taken me years to surrender to the concept of medications. I believe medications can work for some individuals, and then maybe it won't. When I have a child that has the ability to show me that these are choices they're making, it makes it more difficult for me to rely on a medication. Not saying that I haven't, and to this day I still participate with hoping that medication can give him or that child the balance that's necessary. It is very a hurtful thing when they continue to get older and older, and not that they're perfect, not everything that they do is wrong or challenging, but wrong and challenging from their decisions continue to increase. It builds up, and as it builds up, it develops who they become. And if they become, to me, self-destructive, even with making decisions, believing that this is the right way to go, it's going to put them in consequences that may not get out of. No parent wants to bury their child, and there are many of us who are devastated and hurt because our children are incarcerated and we're doing time with them. No, we're not physically in jail, but spiritually, emotionally, and mentally we are. And it takes a hell of a parent to not fully incarcerate themselves when their child is in a facility for their choices of behaviors. This topic is not a one topic, one and done, because it goes on, as I stated, with years of raising children. But now my child has found a way to become a part of the legal system. And let me tell you, would you believe that the legal system is actually telling me that they're going to help? But when there was no legal issues, there was no help that was fittable or compatible to helping this child. When I say life can be unfair, it can be, but it doesn't mean to lay down in it.